We looked at the Phillips curve and the natural rate of unemployment, where we talked about how we can find the natural rate of unemployment through the Phillips curve equation by setting pi t is equal to pi t. So this we looked at before, why we can find the natural rate of unemployment in this way. Now that we know that we can find the natural rate of unemployment through the Phillips curve equation, now what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the Phillips curve equation that we found as pi t is equal to pi t plus n plus z minus alpha ut in terms of un. So we're going to now, given that we know how we can find the natural rate of unemployment from the Phillips curve equation, we're going to rewrite the Phillips curve equation in terms of un. For this, what we're going to do is we're just going to write or take we're going to write this as pi t minus pi t. So we're just taking pi t on the other side. And then what we're going to do is we're going to factor out a minus alpha from here. So when you factor out a minus alpha from here, we're left with ut minus m plus z by alpha, right? So we're just taking pi on the other side and we're factoring out a minus alpha here and we get this. So now note from above that the fraction on the right-hand side is equal to un. Now this fraction m plus z by alpha is equal to un that we found from the Phillips curve equation. Right over here, m plus z by alpha. So this fraction over here is just un. So an equivalent way of writing our Phillips curve in terms of un is this. Pi t minus pi t is minus alpha ut minus un. So this is an equivalent way that you can write this Phillips curve equation in terms of un. This links the inflation rate, the expected inflation rate, and the deviation of unemployment rate from the natural rate. So this is an equivalent way of writing a Phillips curve equation in terms of un. So now suppose pi t is pi bar, i.e. we have the original Phillips curve where inflation expectations are anchored. So the original Phillips curve in terms of un can then be written as this, right? So now if we're taking pi t to be pi bars, we get the original Phillips curve in terms of un as pi t minus pi bar is equal to minus alpha ut minus un. Now let's look at the interpretation of this. Let's say ut is less than un. If ut is less than un, then pi t minus pi bar is equal to minus alpha ut minus un. Now ut is less than un, so this means ut minus un is negative, alpha here is positive, alpha is a positive parameter. So this is minus minus plus, and then we have a plus here. So overall, pi t minus pi bar is positive. Because this is a minus sign, alpha is positive, ut minus un is negative. So minus minus plus, and then this is also plus. So overall, pi t minus pi bar is positive. So pi t minus pi bar is greater than 0. Thus, pi t is greater than pi bar. I.e., when the actual rate of unemployment is lower than the natural rate of unemployment, the inflation rate pi t is above pi bar. Note we have a higher inflation rate than pi bar, but not an increasing one, right? So this is a typo here. This should be we have a higher inflation rate than pi bar, but not an increasing one. Inflation rate is above pi bar, but it's not increasing in this case. Because remember, when we have the original Phillips curve, the trade-off is between inflation rate and unemployment rate, right? So lower unemployment means higher inflation, not increasing. We've discussed this before when you were looking at the difference between the original and accelerationist Phillips curve. So the idea is this, ut is less than un, then pi t is greater than pi bars. In this case, the inflation rate is above pi bar, but it's not increasing according to this equation. So let's look at what if ut is greater than un. So if ut is greater than un, so earlier we looked at ut is less than un. So if ut is greater than un, then pi t minus pi bar, we know minus alpha. So now this alpha we know is a positive parameter. Now ut minus un is positive. So this is minus plus plus. So overall, this is negative pi t minus pi bar. So pi t minus pi bar is less than 0. So pi t is less than pi bar. So when the actual rate of unemployment is higher than the natural rate of unemployment, we can see the inflation rate is below pi bar. So note we have a lower inflation rate than pi bar, but not a decreasing. Now finally, what if ut is equal to un? Then pi t minus pi bar is just equal to 0, right? If we go back, if ut is equal to un, then pi t minus pi bar is just equal to 0. So when the actual rate of unemployment is equal to the natural rate of unemployment, the inflation rate is stable at pi bar. So we looked at the interpretation of this, right? So this is the original Phillips curve in terms of un. If ut is less than un, then pi t is above pi bar. If ut is greater than un, pi t is less than pi bar. If ut is equal to un, pi t is stable at pi bar. And here note something, the first two, if sustained for a significant time, may possibly unanchor expectations, i.e. the case where ut is less than un or where ut is greater than un. Because we discussed this before that if inflation deviates from pi bar for a long time, then people may change the way they form inflation expectations. So inflation expectations may de-anchor, which is essentially how the original Phillips curve worked. Right, so this is something to note. If we sustain ut greater than un and ut less than un for a significant amount of time, then it may possibly unanchor expectations like the original Phillips curve work. Now let's look at what if pi t was equal to pi t minus 1. We had an accelerationist Phillips curve. And in terms of un, then this can be written as pi t minus here instead of pi t, we have pi t minus 1, right? So the only difference here is that for the original Phillips curve, pi t was pi bar. For the accelerationist Phillips curve, pi t is pi t minus 1. So now the accelerationist Phillips curve in terms of un is written as this. Now pi t minus 1 is just change in inflation between any 2 years. Similar to the original Phillips curve, we can look at the interpretation for this as well. So if ut is less than un, then pi t minus 1 is minus alpha ut minus un. Ut minus un is negative, right? Because ut is less than un. Alpha is a positive parameter. So this is minus plus plus. So minus, plus, and this is minus, right? This is negative. This is negative. This is negative. This is positive. So minus is plus, and this is also plus. Overall, this is positive. So pi t minus 1 is greater than 0, which means that inflation in any year t is greater than the inflation in the previous year t minus 1. So even the actual rate of unemployment is lower than the natural rate of unemployment, the inflation rate will increase over time. Because in any year t, inflation is greater than the previous year. So this implies that maintaining a rate of unemployment persistently below the natural rate requires not merely high inflation, but ever increasing accelerating inflation. Right, this is the difference between the original accelerationist Phillips curve we already looked at before. In the original Phillips curve, if pi t is less than, if ut is less than un, then pi t is just greater than pi bar. We have higher inflation, not increasing inflation. But if ut is less than un and we have the modified Phillips curve, then in that case, we know pi t is greater than pi t minus 1. So we just don't have merely high inflation, but we have ever accelerating inflation. Right, so that's the difference here. Similarly, we can do it for if ut is greater than un. Then we know pi t minus 1 is minus alpha ut minus un. Alpha is again a positive parameter. Now, because ut is greater than un, ut minus un is positive. So overall, this is minus plus plus. So overall, this is negative. So pi t minus 1 here is less than 0. And thus it follows pi t is less than pi t minus 1. Even the actual rate of unemployment is higher than the natural rate of unemployment, the inflation rate will decrease over time because inflation in any year t is less than inflation in year t minus 1. So here again, you don't just have lower inflation, you have decreasing inflation now. If ut is less than un, then pi t minus 1 is 0, because if you go back to this, okay, if ut is equal to un, then pi t minus 1 is equal to 0. So pi t is equal to pi t minus 1. So when the actual rate of unemployment is equal to the natural rate of unemployment, then inflation rate is constant, because inflation in year t is equal to inflation in year t minus 1. Which is why in the context of this accelerationist Phillips curve, UN is called NERU, which is the non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. Because when you're looking at the modified Phillips curve, if UT is less than UN, you will have increasing inflation. If UT is greater than UN, you will have decreasing inflation. It's only when UT is equal to UN, inflation will be constant. So in this context, the natural rate of unemployment is called the NERU, non-accelerating inflation rate of unemployment. So this is how we saw, given that we know we can find the natural rate of unemployment from the Phillips curve equation, we can rewrite the Phillips curve equation in terms of UN. And here, if we take pi t to be pi bar, then we have the original Phillips curve in terms of UN. And if we take pi t to be pi t minus 1, then we have the modified Phillips curve in terms of UN.